Hey, Sean,
Yes, Howard.
I got a story for you.
I love stories.
Okay. So imagine that you're a young man.
I am, but go ahead.
All right. Well, that's debatable. I mean, you're younger than Buckshot. We'll go with that.
You and I combined, I think, are younger than Buckshot.
Right. Absolutely. So you're a young man. You go out to Northern California. You go up to this beautiful place called Lake Tahoe.
I've been there.
It's beautiful, isn't
It is amazing. It is absolutely one of the most beautiful places here in this country.
Yes. And it is something that you want to be out on the middle of.
Okay.
So this gentleman, he rents himself a boat. He takes it out in the middle of Lake Tahoe, and this is in August. Little do you know, Lake Tahoe is a little bit cold.
It is. It is cold year round, from my understanding.
Average surface temperature is 63 degrees.
Wow.
So he decides that he's going to, like any other 28-year-old male, he's going to take a video of him doing something to post on the social media.
Social media, it's what
right.
everybody wants to do these days.
Absolutely. That's how you get your likes, right?
That's it. That's what matters for a lot of these young men and women.
Absolutely. So he gets out there, he puts the boat in neutral. He sets his camera up, hits record, goes to the back of the boat and jumps in the water.
Okay.
63 degrees, pretty cold water.
Your body gets cold really quick. Now, everybody else is still in the boat. They're filming him or what?
No, he's by himself.
By himself. Okay.
Yeah, he's just out there visiting alone. Well, little did he know that he didn't put the boat in neutral.
Oh, man. So it's basically just what they call it, trolling, I think, when the boat's just kind of slowly getting away from you, which is typically faster than what you or I can swim.
Yeah, absolutely. So you see this boat moving away from you.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
So the next morning, they find the boat washed up on the beach. There's no driver. They find a cell phone, find out who was on the boat. Family's completely distraught because it's assumed that he's drowned.
So I'm saying when you say they found the boat, he wasn't to be found at this point.
No, sir.
Okay.
Little known fact about Lake Tahoe, too. Once you get down below about 8 feet, the water's 37 degrees.
It drops that fast.
Yeah, that fast. Year round.
That is unbelievable.
So
once listen, 8 feet isn't much. I mean, I'm 6'4".
Yeah,
so that's
3.5.
Yeah, 6'3.5", 6'4". But I mean, a standard diving pool is more than 8 feet deep. So that's not very deep at all.
So when your body hits 37 degrees, it starts to preserve. So it won't decompose and it won't produce gas, which
means you don't rise.
Means you sink. Well, another little known fact about Lake Tahoe, it's not 8 feet deep. In fact, at its deepest, it's almost 1,600 feet deep.
Wow, that's incredible.
So you're the family of this young man. He's drowned. He sank to the bottom of Lake Tahoe. Who do you call to get help?
I'm assuming there in Tahoe, this has happened before.
It has about 7 times a year.
Okay. And, Lake Tahoe, whether the sheriff's department around there, I'm sure there's some sort of a search and recovery type team that's assigned to it. Just like, here in Tulsa, we've got a dive team that gets called out on those type of deals. We don't have any areas in the city of Tulsa that's 1,600 feet deep, though, I assure you.
Right. And Lake Tahoe Search and Rescue, they're great, but they need help. And guess who they call in?
Who's that?
They call in Keith Cormican. He is from Search and Recovery Consultants, and he actually has a wonderful story to tell us about how he actually brought that body back up off the bottom of Lake Tahoe.
That's unbelievable.
So that their family could actually put him to rest.
Have some closure.
So Keith, we're glad to have you today. How you doing?
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, we've got a question for you. How did you actually are a deputy, right?
Yeah, I'm a volunteer deputy for the local sheriff's department's dive team.
But that
unit director.
But that dive team is not in Lake Tahoe, is it?
It is not. We're here in Wisconsin.
So how have you become world renowned as a deep water body recovery expert?
I tell you, it started in 2013 when I started my nonprofit organization called Bruce's Legacy. And the years prior to that, we were doing body recovery just by diving, feeling along the bottom and doing our best that way. But I knew there was more technology out there with utilizing sonar equipment, remote operated vehicles. But I soon learned that, these things were very, very expensive. And so I had been wanting to do something for several years. And finally in 2013, I took the plunge. I pulled some.
That's a pun,
money.
isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's I took some money out of my savings and started Bruce's Legacy, and we bought sonar equipment. Started volunteering to do recoveries. Our very first recovery was right away that July, and we traveled to North Dakota and found a gentleman in a reservoir or in a lake out there that had been missing for about a week, and we found him in about a half hour's time. And so that was our very first one, and then it's gone just crazy ever since. We volunteer all over the U.S., Canada, and we've also been in Nepal, almost to Mount Everest for a search.
Keith, you brought up this first one that you went there to North Dakota and recovered this man out of that reservoir there. Your very first time going out on one of these, and within 30 minutes of finding this guy, just describe what that feeling's like, for you guys.
Well, I tell you, it's pretty amazing because they had other agencies in there looking for him. We came in, we were kind of had suggestions thrown at us where we should start. They weren't the area I wanted to start in, so I kind of explained to them where I wanted to start. They agreed to it, and because of that, we were able to locate them fairly quick, working a cell phone ping. And so with these sonars, we cover a pretty good swath of area, and just working the known facts is the key to then our success. And that one, it's really an amazing feeling to be able to help these folks.
Well, on this show, we like to hear stories and cocktails and stuff, but we also like to have a drink because we like to keep it casual.
We do like to keep it casual,
right? We talk about serious professions like yours, but we like to have a casual conversation about that. So tonight, we let you pick the drink, and I loved your response when we sent the text out to you. I said, "What's your cocktail or drink of choice?" And you had 4 letters to say.
4 letters.
And what were those 4 letters, sir?
What would those 4 letters say?
Yeah, what were those 4 letters of your drink that you wanted to have tonight?
Well, Bud Light.
That's what we're talking about. It was clearly just beer is fine. Yeah. So tonight we're going to have a beer. We've got some nice beer from American Solari. It's a little local brewery here. We're going to drink with you, and we're going to ask you to share your stories about your fascinating and truly fascinating line of work. So here's to you, sir. Cheers
to what you do.
All right.
Appreciate it, Keith.
Thank you.
That's good.
Just a good red-blooded American there with Bud Light. I love it.
Yeah, we've drank some crap.
We have.
We've had some horrible stuff.
Now, I will say this, not to go off on a tangent. When I was in college, I worked for Anheuser-Busch directly. I actually drove a beer truck. I had a CDL.
Wow.
I drove the big rig, and I will say this, everybody loves the beer man. So when you're 21, 22 years old, that's a hell of a good job to have to, you get 2 things said to you though, every time you deliver. And it's just like being a police officer. You walk into a place, people, it's the same line you hear everywhere. I didn't do it. And they raise their hands, or they point to their friend. They point to their friend. They're like, he's right there. Same one. And you have to laugh every time. You've heard it 1,000 times. But at Budweiser, when you're walking in and with your 2-wheel dolly rolling your beer inside, everybody's like, you see the red truck up there, put it out there. Or, hey, you got any samples? Same thing. You hear it every single time. But
I thought it'd be more like you look like Boomhauer. from King of the Hill.
Well,
That's what I thought they would say.
Well, I need a haircut.
Uh-huh.
I'm a little overdue. So come tomorrow, cut.
So Keith,
There you go.
a question I always like to ask people because I'm kind of nosy like this and stuff. You're a unit director for the sheriff's department out there. How much does that pay? How much have you gotten paid to do this job?
I have never been fortunate enough to ever receive a paycheck for that service. Never.
Really? And how long have you been working?
22 years. 22 years, and I'm a very unique one. Unlike Sean there, I've never collected a paycheck. I'm crazy enough just to volunteer my time.
Well, listen, Keith, I'll tell you this, my paychecks aren't much more than what they've given you either. So you don't have to worry about that, buddy.
Yeah.
No, but hey, listen, from an active police officer, those of you out there that do volunteer your time, the reserve deputies, the reserve police officers, just what we call volunteers in policing, are the volunteer firemen that are out there that do this type of stuff, man, it is a huge, huge service to the guys that do work full time, obviously to the communities that you guys do this for. So it is much, much appreciated. And, your story is definitely unique, especially in what you're doing out there, just from that giving standpoint of yourself, and not just there, obviously where you're located at. And as you mentioned, you're all over the country, you're in Canada, Nepal, et cetera. So it's pretty incredible.
So let's get back to this Tahoe story. So how did you get involved with this? Who contacted you on this poor gentleman? And I can't imagine. We're both parents. I assume you're a parent, right?
I am.
I can't imagine what they're feeling.
Yeah. It's just absolutely brutal.
So how do they contact you?
So, the social media, it's just an amazing tool. For Lake Tahoe, we started out there in 2017, and we recovered a young gentleman out there that put us all over the news media. I mean, we recovered that after 14 months he'd been missing. Everybody out in the West Coast had been searching for him for the first year, and the family had reached out to us 12 months later, heard about us through the social media, reached out to us, asked if we'd come out there. And I never thought I would ever go out, drive that far, towing our boat. But we agreed to do it. And we went out there and found the young man in 250 feet of Lake Tahoe. And that was such big news out there that we had 7 TV news channels lined up to do interviews that evening. And they just flooded that West Coast out there with that news. And then the sad part, the next day and a half, I spent on the phone with them. About 22 family members called me in a day and a half, asking me if I'd come and search for their loved one. Some of those had been missing for over 20 years. Some, that jumped off bridges, in rivers, lakes. And it was very, very heart-wrenching to talk with those families. A lot of parents, and knowing in the rivers and stuff. I mean, if it's been any time at all, the rivers are a worse place to search. So I spent a very heart-wrenching day and a half talking to all these parents, and knowing that I couldn't, trying to come up with a way to tell them that, there's really nothing I can do for most of them. But in that day and a half, we did agree to come back and do a couple searches. And so about a month later, we did travel back, and then we located 3 more drowning victims. One in Lake Tahoe, one in Lake Shasta, or Lake over by Truckee.
Yep.
And then one in Fallen Leaf Lake. It was a cold case that lady had been missing for 16 years.
Man,
So by the time we had done that, now we were, the news media went crazy with all that. And then we ended up coming back a third trip in 2017. and then we recovered 2 more, one in Fresno, California, and then another one in that Fallen Leaf Lake. That guy had been missing for 14 years, and they didn't even know he'd been missing. It's quite a bunch of stories there, I know, but in 2017, we pretty much, I think we rocked the world out there in California with 6 recoveries in 2017, some being out as far as 16 years. So if I think whenever you Google us now, we're right on the top of Google search and looking for drowning victims and such. And of course, the fascinating stories out in California and Lake Tahoe has really put us on the map. And so for this last fall, or last summer, late summer, we were actually in Alberta, Canada, in the National Park Banff, looking for a young boy, where they wouldn't let any Americans in that country. We got special permission to enter it to go look for this young man. And we were up there on a huge lake, very deep, very difficult search. And when this family had first reached out to me, I think they'd reached out to me like through email on the second day of him gone missing. And then I got just bombarded with friends of the family even reaching out to us. I don't know, I would guess I probably got 30 emails from friends and family of that young man, because they're out in New Jersey. And I had explained to them that I was out on a search, and the locals have got equipment to go quite deep. And I've actually trained those 2 departments out there. I sold them special custom ROVs to go to the bottom of Lake Tahoe. And so I started the communication with them, both departments, right away, because I know them well. I've trained them. I sold them ROVs and offered them any assistance, and or just over the phone or what I could help with. Was able to give them some pointers and stuff, but one of the teams was having some electronic problems once they got hooked up to go that deep. The other ones were just, I think, finding a hard time finding the time to do it. And so the departments worked together and did what they could, and just weren't able to get it done. And then that's when I agreed to, I would agree with the family to come out and give them a hand, and actually work with those guys with their equipment, because mine is not rated for that deep of water. They figured him to be in around 14 to 1,500 feet, and mine's only rated for 1,000 feet. Theirs is rated for Lake Tahoe is 1,640 feet, and we had customized these 2 ROVs to go that deep and have enough cable to go that deep.
When you talk about 1,600 feet, that's taller than the Eiffel Tower, right?
Yeah, it is.
That's way down there. And Lake Tahoe is an enormous lake. I mean, it's huge.
It's massive.
So how did you even know where to start to search for this young man?
Yeah, that was a very unique thing about this case, is because he had a.
Hey, Keith, hold on for a second. You had a little feedback.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, it's gone now.
All right, now you can go. So I'll do this. So Lake Tahoe is a big lake. How did you even know where to start to find him?
Sure. So we had found out early on that the young man's cell phone had a tracking device on it.
Oh, okay.
And so they were able to produce a tracking of him through his phone, going all the way across that lake, coming around to the east. He left the south end of the lake, traveled all the way to the north end of the lake, enjoying the views, then headed over to the east side. And that's where he had been taking pictures, some video all along, sending them to friends and family and stuff. And it was because of that tracking app on his phone is the key of putting this on him. So we had to do a lot of deciphering of all the data based on the video, and able to figure it all out. It took quite a bit, and one of the local teams out there was very knowledgeable with some of that stuff, so they were very helpful. So we actually got a pretty good area based on all that information.
So you come out there, you said you trained both of those departments. Did you use their equipment? Did you bring your own boat out? What'd you haul out there?
Yeah, so I had originally wanted to bring my own boat because I really hate depending on other people's schedules. I've never had really good luck with that, working off of other people's schedules, and so I wanted to bring my own boat, but I needed to use their ROV. One of the departments, when I talked to the family, I said, we're really relied on their equipment right now because it's it's the only thing available this quick, this short of notice. And so basically I just told the mother, I said, you know what you need to do, is you need to beg this department to let me to allow them to let me use their equipment, which I felt they would, and because I know them pretty well and got good rapport with them. So she did. She was able to convince them as a grieving mother, and they agreed to let me use their equipment. But once we got into the plans, they wanted me to use their boat as well. And so then, I was told we were going to start out. We were supposed to have 7 days to search. So I was setting up my schedule for 7 days. And then soon after we started making the plans, they changed that on me down to 4 days. And I was really distraught about 4 days of search, because trying to do that kind of search in 4 days was asking an awful lot. So, you're dependent on the weather, the wind, is our worst enemy. But that was either that or I wasn't going to get them at all.
Right.
So we agreed to that 4 days, and we set it all up, went out there, got together with them, and we found them actually on the second day.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. And Keith, and I apologize, I'm not familiar with any of this equipment you're talking about. So tell us about what an ROV is. And, you said there that the agencies there in Lake Tahoe that you had worked with, trained with, that theirs had enough cable to go to that depth. You're talking about the sonar, and just kind of explain how all that works.
Sure. So on a normal search, we actually use a tow fish. We tow along the bottom, and we cover so much ground, and we could, we can really get a good picture of what's on the bottom. But because of the depth of this, where he was known to be, we couldn't utilize something like that for what we had. And so then the ROV is a very much a slower process. So it's a remote operated vehicle that we control right out of the boat. It's on a cable. So the cable at whatever depth has got to be able to reach that depth and then be able to search around on the bottom. And so the depth is always a big thing, because most of these remote operated vehicles only rated to 1,000 feet, and 1,000 feet's a long way, we know. But we customized these 2 units to with some devices to be able to make this depth. But little do you know is operating at those depths. I have never done it. Not too many people have, but boy, you talk about the stress on equipment and the electronics and all that stuff at 1,500 feet is enormous. The weight on the body is enormous.
Yeah. So this ROV, it's controlled from you guys up there in the boat. I assume similar to like, remote control. I mean, just exactly what you're calling it.
I think there's an iPhone app.
An iPhone app for that?
Yeah, you just it's on the app store. You can get it. Deep water recovery.
Not available for the Android users?
No, not Android. Not at all.
Right.
Like an Xbox controller.
Yeah.
But once it's down there, obviously the visibility, I assume, is zero. And it just
actually, like Lake Tahoe is pretty amazing.
no kidding.
At that depth, I still, with the lights, I have some very, very bright lights on these things.
Okay.
But we probably had around 30 feet of visibility with the lights that I had.
Really?
That is incredible.
That's amazing. That Lake Tahoe is a unique lake as far as the visibility and the clarity. When I found them at 250 feet, I didn't even need lights on the ROV, and I could see them 70 feet away. So, but even at, we had no clue what this was going to turn into, but the clarity was great. It's dark. It's pitch dark. You turn the lights out, you're not going to see anything. But the other advantage we have is the sonar. So the sonar on these things can reach out, they can reach out to 300 feet, but I never reach out that far. But, I could reach out to 200 feet and see something quite a way. I was showing these deputies on the boat. I had a, boat full of deputies, full-time cops. And they were just amazed. I could point out there's a lot of beer cans at the bottom of that lake, unfortunately.
There are, huh?
Good thing we're not out on the lake right now, because there might be a few more, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We never do that.
We'd never litter.
It's pretty amazing that I could spot with that sonar a beer can and tell them guys that that's a beer can and drive right to it over 100 feet away. And just because of the brightness and the size, I could tell them it's a beer can, drive to it, and these guys about fall over. It's either a beer can or a red Solo cup.
Really?
And there were quite a few of them we ran across while we were searching for them.
Yeah.
So a body, I could see a body 200 feet away.
Really?
And is there, once again, I'm not much of an outdoorsman, definitely not a fisherman, but down at, 1,600 feet there in Lake Tahoe, is there, aquatic life, anything moving around down there, or is it pretty still?
There was. Yeah, there was. We did see some pretty large fish. And again, I'm not any kind of a fisherman at all. So to be able to identify what these things are, I don't know. We didn't see Loch Ness Nelly down there at all.
I was just going to say that. Or the Kraken.
The Kraken.
The Kraken.
We were looking, but it never came across. But yeah, we did see some fish down there waddling around. We disturb them. And
I bet you scared the hell out of those fish. They're like, hey,
absolutely.
we're down here by ourselves all the time. What is this?
Hey, seeing lights coming at them. Yeah, that would be interesting.
I noticed that it's pretty customary when you have a boat. What's the name of your boat?
Bruce's Legacy.
Bruce's Legacy. We're going to talk about Bruce's Legacy here in a little bit. But what about your ROIs, ROVs, RVIs, RBIs?
ROVs.
Yes.
Remote operated vehicle.
Do you put names on them?
Do I what?
Are they named? Do you name them as well?
I normally don't, but this one that we used in Lake Tahoe is named.
What's its name?
By it's Miss Lisa.
Oh, Miss Lisa.
Miss Lisa. She is a local resident of Lake Tahoe that donated the money to buy that thing for the local department, and so we had Miss Lisa put on the ROV when it was being built. Amazing.
Well, cheers to Miss Lisa.
Yeah,
for sure. There's a lot of really good people
Lisa.
that do things out there in the community like that. We actually just here in Tulsa, we've had a group of some of our well-to-do people in the city of Tulsa actually put some money together and donated for some like top level ballistic vests that stop rifle rounds and things like that. So, I love seeing that from people out there. Obviously we don't have the need for equipment like that, Miss Lisa here, but I imagine there for those guys working up in that Tahoe area, that's a huge asset. And obviously so, as the story is telling.
Well, so on day 2, you're going along, you're looking at beer cans, you're scaring fishes, right? You're pretty deep. I assume that your equipment's having a hard time at that depth. That's a lot of water pressure, right?
It is. And that's, that's what day 2 produced for us. So day 1, it was a lot of learning. And I mean, it took us over 30 minutes to just driving this thing to the bottom.
Really?
Just 30 minutes of letting out cable and me holding the down throttle to get that thing down. So we learned a lot, and I had a boat operator that had never done anything like this. She was an amazing police officer, a Marine police officer that drives that boat. But and I was assured of how much experience she'd had, but I knew she was going to be very humbled when we are asking her. She drives a boat across that lake wide open, very, very fast and very good. But to hold a big boat like that still in the wind is very trying, and she did a great job. So the first day was spent, just searching the areas, beginning to search. We had a good successful day. The day, the winds weren't too bad. They got a little windy in the afternoon. But day 2, when we came back, we were just going to expand on that search. And as soon as we got started, we started having electrical problems. When we got down to that depth, the thrusters, the motors that run the props were not working right. It felt like a connection problem, and so we started battling problems right away, and then also the winds were pretty strong that morning, and they were supposed to be constant all day. So we were battling to the winds, and so we could get this thing running for a little bit, and then it quit. And so we just decided when it quit, it would just sit on the bottom. So we were kind of plagued, well, do we quit and just go back and try to fix it, figure out what's going on, or we just sat there out in that boat and we're problem solvers. This is what I like about what we do, is we are plagued with a tremendous amount of problems all the time with this stuff. There's so much electronics on the boat that something's always giving us grief. And now we're having this connection problem. So we knew we were getting there. The sonar was working and the lights were working, but it was just the thrusters were the issue. So I could drive this a little bit and then it would quit. But we decided to tow that thing and have the deputy driving the boat just go backwards, because we were going off the bow of the boat, and just go backwards and just tow that thing till it came up off the bottom 20-30 feet. And then she would stop, and then that thing would rest down, and then we would scan 50 to 100 feet, and then we'd just keep going. And so we were doing this. We did this for about 3 hours, and that's when we found this gentleman.
So essentially, it was essentially like a grid search. It sounds like you're kind of just, like grid search in the bottom of the lake by that method.
Towing something, bobbing it, coming off. And it's just amazing, because we were doing something. And if we would have packed up and went into shore, we'd have been spending it trying to troubleshoot it and figure out what it was. But in this case, our luck played out, and we did find him, and it did allow me to actually drive over. For some reason, this thing stayed running long enough. Once we found him on the sonar, he was a good he's around 150 feet away, and it allowed me to drive right over to him and see it was him. He was plain as day. It was definitely him, and it allowed us to even pull up and grab him by his wrist. And that was the beginning of our problems then, is we just could not get the grabber to stay attached to his wrist. Usually that's always pull them up. It's either their wrist or their ankle. But his wrist was sitting up, he was on his back. So we were able to grab him by the wrist. And we started, then what we do is we don't run the thrusters, long as the grabber was working, the lights were working, the sonar was working. It's just the thrusters were sporadic. And so we were able to grab them, and then we start pulling them up from the boat on the cable. We just hand over hand start pulling them up, and we didn't get him too far off the bottom, maybe 10, 15 feet off the bottom, and then he would get pulled away. He would get, his arm would come loose of the grabber. And then, we tried that, I don't know, a few times, dealing with the sporadic thrusters. It took us quite a while, but we could not get him up that day. And we were so stressed out by then, and knowing that we had to leave him really, really sucked. The mother had traveled to Lake Tahoe. There, she was in town as well. And I promised her that and as I do all the families I deal with, is I would report back to her at the end of each day and let her know the progress. So the day before, I had to call her that night and tell her what our progress was, which, was no success on day one. But on day two, now I'm trying to figure out, do I really tell her that we found him or not? And on the way back, we had talked about it as our team, and decided that she needs to know that we did find him, so maybe she could rest a little, sleep a little easier. And we were glad we did that. I did explain to her that this is extremely tough. We're having trouble. We know where he's at. I know I could drive right back and find him again, no problem. But I said, we're just got to figure out a way to get him up. So on day three, we put together a few different ideas and some backup plans, and we headed back out. And darned if we didn't spend all day battling with connection problems. We had brought out the other ROV that was having sonar problems connecting that. Once it got below 500 feet, the sonar didn't work. So that, well, maybe we could get that one, the grabber, to work on that one. So we had a lot of plans going on day three, and spent the whole day out there trying to get him up. And knowing that I only had 4 days, the stress was unbearable. We had to leave day three trying things all day long. Tried many, many different things. We had to bring that ROV up about 4 different times. Every time we brought the ROV up, it took us, approximately 45 minutes to an hour, and we had to bring it up like 4 times that day, trying different things. So on day 4, it was supposedly going to be our last day. And on day 4, we get out there, and the winds were blowing right away in the morning. Usually they were picking up in the early afternoon. It was pretty common out there. But on day 4, we got out there, and it was like, there's 2-foot waves out there already, and they were supposed to be constant all day. So that was a big negative right away to start out with. But we all agreed that let's try it and see, because waves are horrible on trying to bring something fragile up from the bottom, because you're on the boat pulling on a tight cable, and if you're doing this, that's what that body's going to be doing. And
hey, Keith, not to cut you off right there. Just, you said you had 4 days out there, and I'm assuming when you found the body that you yourself or the family or the other deputies out there would have probably fought like hell to say, hey, if it takes us 6 days, we know where he's at. Yeah. We're out here for a reason. We're gonna get this kid up. We're gonna bring this boy home to mom. And I can only imagine that there was no way that you were going to leave there without some sort of a fight to get this young man back up.
That was the talk. I mean, but the talk was they had some other commitments on Monday and Tuesday, and this was on day 4 was Sunday, and they were telling me that they couldn't come out on Monday and Tuesday. Gotcha. And that we would come back out on Wednesday. And it's like, just another reminder of why I don't like doing things without my equipment.
Without your boat.
Without your stuff. And I'm assuming that, when you find him down there, and obviously you guys were able to drive back out there the next day and the next day, right out to where he was at. Is it some sort of a GPS coordinates marked that you guys basically make, and you go, hey, this is where he's at, so you know exactly where to go to.
Absolutely. Yep, that's what it was. So this day got pretty crazy. So we had, I had, I don't sleep a whole lot when I do these things, and I lay up at night trying to think. Especially with this, we just couldn't get him hooked up and brought up as I've been successful with bringing many bodies up with that thing, and this time it wasn't working. I mean, by now on day 4, I had grabbed a hold of him, a minimum of 15 times, and could not get him up. So on day 4, we got hit with these winds right away, and now we went ahead and I had rigged up a like a little lasso, kind of as we MacGyvered it, because the claw wasn't working. I did 2 things. I'm always very big in redundancy. So I rigged up the claw with some zip ties and left the zip ties about 1 inch long. And without describing it too much, I haven't told a lot of people this, but it kind of acted as 6 spikes in the claw, and to be able to bite down on his wrist and see if that would help. So that was the first thing we were going to do, because that was going to be the easiest. The second thing we were going to try was a lasso, where I would drop this lasso over his arm and then pull on it, have the end of the lasso tied to the ROV, and then we would pull on the ROV and cinch the lasso up. So we started with plan A, which was the modified claw with the man-made spikes on them. And lo and behold, we got him up off the bottom, and we got him coming further shallow, had him coming longer than we'd ever had him coming. And it took us about, I'm not sure the exact times, we've all kind of guessed at it, but we were pulling on him constantly for well over an hour. We had him up to 580 feet from when we first found him. He was at 1,465 feet, I think it was. When we first found him, he was in 1,400 some feet. Well, now we'd had him coming, and it's taken over an hour to get him to 580 feet. And also, I told the boat operators, once we start bringing him up, is to put it in neutral, so we got less restriction from the props pushing, pulling on that cable, pulling on him. I wanted us to drift. And so that's what she had done. And so we had been drifting for an hour, and wouldn't you know it, of all places, we are drifting right towards the middle of the lake. Instead of, we were 3.5 miles off the shoreline already. And now we're drifting for over an hour, pulling him up, and we're heading towards the middle of the lake. And so at 580 feet, he came loose.
Oh, man.
We were just all devastated. We had wireless comms that I brought out with me, so I could talk to the guys pulling the line in. This is very heavy. I mean, this I think we figured with a body, the ROV, and 1,800 feet of cable, we figured that to all be like around 350 pounds. And these guys were pulling that hand over hand, just very delicately. And then we lost them. So right away, I explained to her ahead of time that if we lost them at any point, that I would yell up to her and she would mark a new waypoint, because she was the key to marking our spot. And then I was down in the front of the boat, and when this happened, yell out, tell her to mark the spot. Told the guys we lost them. They felt them, and now we were pretty devastated, and then to find out we were further away from shore towards the middle of the lake, not knowing how deep that was going to put us and if we could find them. I was pretty confident we'd find them, but with all the electronic problems we were having, I was pretty worried. But we decided to pull the ROV up, being that we had it that shallow. We decided to pull the ROV up, got it on the boat, and then we went to plan B. Okay. And now we're not even sure we can find them, but I was pretty confident that we would, and we did. We went down and I found them right away. Wasn't long, and I was able to find him again. And then now he's in 1500, and he ended up in 1565.
So another 100 feet.
Yeah, even
So
deeper.
he had gone, yeah, now he's deeper. And so luckily he was laying on his back again, which helped. It keeps his arms up where we can get at him. And I took that lasso down, and I'll be darned if we, it's amazing. It's all video. I got it all on video. Everything's recorded what we do. And I was able to lay that lasso right over his arm, and I worked it up, trying to get over to his elbow, but we just couldn't get it up over his elbow. So we got it up on his forearm, and then we pulled it tight. And lo and behold, that is what got him to the surface eventually. It took us almost 2 hours of pulling, nice and steady, with those 2-foot waves. Just I was so worried it was going to break something on the ROV and release them, break something that was going to break. And but we did get him to the surface that day.
Well, congratulations there. Hey, I have a question, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are thinking about this, because I am. How long was he in the water, sir?
Okay, so he was in the water at that point approximately 2 months.
What's a body look like after 2 months in the water?
He looks like he went in yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
So and let me ask you this then, Keith. So I worked 1 year in our major crimes homicide unit here very early in my my time on the department. And during that year, we basically get called out to every what we call unnatural death. Something that you can't call the doctor from the house and they sign the death certificate, which is typically somebody with a health condition, an older person, something like that. So we go out on all homicides, suicides, fatality car accidents, small plane crashes, whatever you want to, whatever they want to be. And here in Tulsa, we actually have, we're a pretty big city, so we have quite a few of those a year. But there was one time when I was down at the ME's office. And so let me backtrack. The way it works is if we have a homicide on a Thursday night and you're the major crimes guys working that night, we process the scene. The next day after the autopsy's done, we have to go back to the ME's office and we would do the fingerprinting of the body. And there was one night we were down there, and another detective by the name of Glenn Urin, he and I were there at the ME's office, and they had I think it was like an 18 or 19-year-old kid that had drowned out at Lake Ulaga.
Ulaga, that's an Indian word.
Yes, at Lake Ulaga. And his body was just in the water for a few days, and when he was found, and this is, I guess, my question to you. His body, and I'm not trying to be gross, I'm just being factual, this thing had ballooned up. And when I say ballooned up, I'm talking his eyeballs coming out, of his head. I mean, it literally looked like Garfield, or like John from Garfield, the bulging eyes, fingers completely swollen full of water, his genitals gigantic because of the water in his body.
Did you say generals?
Genitals.
You said you're trying to say genitals.
Genitals.
You said generals.
His genitals. I've had some strong beer.
Generals.
But he and so to get his fingerprints off of him, the ME literally put rubber gloves on, had to cut the skin off the young man's hand, his fingerprints, because they were so full of water you could not see them. And then he had to take that with the scalpel and actually put the skin on his own gloves, and then had to do the fingerprint card. So question I'm asking you is, is it because of the cold of Lake Tahoe, the body basically stayed that, compared to probably the warmth of the Lake Ulaga?
So obviously that guy was found on the surface.
Yes, he had full of gas and risen, I'm assuming. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens? That's the one of the big differences is so when I hear that they're in that condition, typically they will have come to the surface and then continue to gas. Because of the warmth, the sun hits them, the warmer water's on the surface. And if you don't get them right away, they spend some time on the surface, they only get bigger and bigger. So it's a water temperature promotes that warm surface temperature. So once they so you give an example, if they were hung up on a tree down at the bottom of a 30-foot river or lake, they might be stuck there, and then the body starts gassing up. And then the gas promotes the stretching of body parts. Then over a period of time, if they're really wedged under something, they'll start getting bigger and bigger until they get enough buoyancy to where they will break loose and then come to the surface pretty large, pretty loaded up. But on most people, they will, when they build enough gas to leave the bottom, they come to the surface, they will be in normal size. So if you can catch them right away, they'll be the normal size.
Okay.
But if it's really, really warm water, they're getting big from the gases expanding in their body is what promotes that. So warm water is what does that. Lake Tahoe being very cold lakes, the bodies will not produce that gas. And then also it's so temperature and depth are the two things that are the key factors, whether we see them whether we see them at all, or whether they take 2 days or 2 weeks to come up. So my feeling with all the deep stuff that I've done, I've recovered many bodies over 200 feet now, and what I find is anything over 100 feet of depth, you most likely will not see them. They won't come up because of the pressure, and the water's always colder, deeper.
So when you recovered that body, like in 2017, you said you recovered 6 bodies. One of them was from a lake, and that person had been in there 16 years.
16 years.
What that body look like?
So that one just fascinated the pathology world to do the autopsy, because they when we recovered that lady, I had no clue to what we would find. No clue. Didn't even know if she'd show up on sonar. But because we had time, and I asked them if they had any cold cases to work, that's how we got on that case. And it was amazing, in good shape. She showed up on sonar, very, very good. And when we first seen her, their hands and their feet are kind of the first things that go, because those are the small bones. So those were gone. But after 16 years, man, her clothes had rotted away, but the stitching from her pants and her shirt, the stitching was all there. In her case, her bra was just, when we pulled her out of the water, the bra looked like it was a couple days old, because the bra is synthetic, and synthetic material didn't rot at all like the clothing did. And so yeah, she was in amazing shape. She was just like she was petrified. Her forearms, her her legs, her thighs, her stomach, her breast, all that was still intact.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it blew the, like I said, the pathologists. They supposedly brought in pathologists from around the country that wanted to see this, because this was very, very unusual. Yeah, she came up all one piece, which we didn't expect that. All her joints were kind of fused So her joints were, everything was just rigid. Her skin was kind of petrified. Crazy.
Well, I've got a question for you. When you were out there in 2017 and it's estimated there's a couple of hundred bodies in the bottom of Lake Tahoe. Is that about the standard number that they say?
I don't know. I guess I don't know that I really ever heard numbers.
Right.
But because I don't I don't really put a
Sure.
lot of study into that. I got enough shit to think about.
Absolutely.
But but the very first guy we found, that deputy, because he was in a lot worse shape than we thought he would be after 14 months, and that's Lake Tahoe, cold water, deep lake. But he was his body was in a lot worse shape that I didn't know if that for sure was going to be our guy that we were looking for. And the detective, when I called him and told him, I says, hey, I think I found our guy, but I says, he's in a lot worse shape than I thought. And he just says, hey, he says, it could be one of many that we have on our lake. He said, we have bodies that go missing. And before we came along, all they told those families, one of the detectives that I worked with told us at some point, said, until we came along, all we ever told these families that they just don't recover the bodies out there. Pretty much they're out of luck. And and they really didn't have a chance to look.
Keith, actually, just while you were talking about the size of Lake Tahoe and Howard was asking about other bodies down there, I just had to Google it. I mean, I know it is a massive, massive lake, and that thing is 191 square miles.
Yeah, it's huge, man.
That is the size of Lake Tahoe.
You need to go look at it. It's big.
No, I've been there. I mean, growing up in the Bay Area, I mean, that's I've been up there several times, had family that lived up near there. And just as he was talking about earlier about being 3 miles offshore. Yeah. I mean, there's not many lakes here in the US you could say that.
No,
3 miles away from shore.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hey, but with that said, did you ever find, hey, Keith, hold on one second.
You got some poker chips on the table, or
you're banging something. What are you banging?
We can hear you like stacking poker chips or coins or something.
No, I'm flipping with okay. Yeah, I just flipping a thing on the table here. That's actually it's a mouse bomb.
Oh, it's coming through pretty good. Yeah, we heard it real well.
Yeah, we can hear it.
It's like boom,
wow.
boom, boom. So yeah. So in all this time searching on the bottom of Lake Tahoe, did you ever find a body you weren't looking for?
Yes. And not in Lake Tahoe, but in Fallen Leaf Lake, and where we found this the lady that we were looking for. So the story is with that one. When we were out there on our second trip, we had found our 2 victims that we came for much quicker than we ever anticipated, and we had scheduled 2 weeks to be gone away from work. So we had it cut me out a few extra days. And so I asked the deputies if they had any cold cases, and they said, yeah, they have several. And they told me about one that happened this is in 2017. They told me about a case where 20 years prior to this, 2 boys were out in Fallen Leaf Lake, which Fallen Leaf Lake is about 3 miles as the crow flies from Lake Tahoe, but it's higher up into the mountains. And there's a lot of really nice homes around it, and it's more of it's a 350 feet deep lake, but it's a lot smaller. And so 20 years prior to this, there was 2 boys out fishing in a canoe with a dog. They capsized their canoe, and 1 boy drowned in that situation. So that boy, they could never find him. And the mother of that young man, that was her second child she's lost.
Oh,
she 4 years later, she is going through a divorce. She's having some mental issues, and she finds out she's got some form of cancer. That's what the report says. So this lady's got a pile of shit put in her plate.
Yeah.
And she gets in a pissing match with her soon-to-be ex-husband one night, and she drives up to that mountain lake. She knows there was a cabin that these guys were out in front of, so there's a known spot out there. She drove to one night and left a note in her vehicle, and she vanished. And she said in her note, she said she's going to be with her son,
Oh, goodness.
and they couldn't find her. So when we heard about that story, it's like, holy smokes. And we read the report, got the reports, there are police reports on it, read through them all. And this case was at that time 16 and 20 years old, both of them. So we went out that Monday night and just put the ROV in and just checked the bottom and just monkeyed around for a couple hours to get the feel of the bottom contour, because that was a lot smaller and it dropped off quite fast. So we spent a couple hours that night, Monday night. Tuesday morning we got going. I had a detective and a sheriff's deputy from El Dorado County on my boat. I got to be good friends with, and we were a couple 2-3 hours into this, and sure enough, I came across a sonar image that it was
wasn't a beer can, huh?
Yeah, it was definitely, you could see the legs, and in the sonar image, it was a good image of a body. And this was a couple hundred yards offshore. And quite honestly, I was really hoping to find the young man first, because the mother wanted to be there with her son.
Yeah.
And so we put the ROV down, and lo and behold, because it was a couple hundred yards offshore, we thought there's no way she could swim in that cold water out this far. Lo and behold, it ended up being her. She was in 250 feet of water, 200 yards offshore. So we did a bunch of video that day. We actually did bring her skull up. They asked us, because it was detached from the torso. It was just kind of laying there, separated from the spinal cord. So we could see that. And then so they got a hold of the sheriff, and they said to try to bring the skull up so they could see if they could identify it. And we didn't think she'd stick together. We just figured she'd fall apart. And so we did that, videotaped it all, brought the skull back that night. And then the next day they asked if I could bring what I could up. And so the next day we did that, and she came up all one piece, by amazement to all of us. We brought her up for 250 feet that day and brought her home. So now we were definitely pressured to be able to try to find a boy,
Right.
Not so much as a department, but just for the fact that, the circumstances.
They go together.
Yeah.
Mamas and children go together.
So we spent the next 3 days searching for the boy and collected a lot of data, and everything I do is all recorded. By now, we had been getting calls from a family in South Carolina while we were out in California. And I was really trying to figure out a way to not have to go to South Carolina. This is our second trip. This is in September now. We were here in July, and now we're being asked to go to South Carolina, and it was 100 degrees with 100% humidity down there.
Tahoe's better.
Oh my goodness. And so I was really trying to work my way on not going there. So we had to pull out of California, and without finding the boy. And we got home, and that family, once they found out we found a body from 16 years prior, I knew there was no way we were going to get out of that one in South Carolina, because they were very desperate.
Right.
Over a 2-month period, they had 24 departments come from 3 states to look for that guy. He was an air traffic controller. Him and his wife were out in the boat on the lake they live on, the largest lake in that borders South Carolina and Georgia, is Lake Hartwell. And that lady was so devastated because she had found out, which a lot of them do. This is 2 months later. The finances, she cannot get any Social Security. She cannot get any accounts. She cannot get any life insurance until they have a death certificate, and that could take 5 to 7 years in their state. She said she would lose her home before that would ever happen. So we were compelled to go. So we got a little work done at home, and then we jumped in our truck and hauled our boat to South Carolina. During all this road tripping, what I do is I review all my data, and I'm reviewing the data to look for this young man. And somewhere along the way, as I find a sonar image that looks really promising, that could be that boy. And we're back in Wisconsin on our way to South Carolina when I find this. And it's like, just devastated. How are we going to get back to California to see what this is?
Right.
So we go to South Carolina. We find that gentleman in a day and a half. Took us a day and a half. We find him in 100 feet of water. After 24 departments, 3 states came and looked for him.
Here you go. We got this. Hold my beer, huh? Hold my Bud Light.
My beer.
Yeah, absolutely. I got this for you. 100 feet, no big deal.
So do you guys make the trip across the country from South Carolina back to California?
From South Carolina, we came back home again.
Okay.
And now I'm really sick about this, and looking at this image, and this image is looking better and better, driving me crazy. And I'll be damned if we didn't get another phone call from California for a missing man in Fresno, California.
So you got to go back out, huh?
Yeah, I jumped all over that, said we will be there. And that was another case. It was another lady, lost her husband on a camping trip. They rented a little putt-putt boat. It sunk. He drowned. She got picked up by some passerbys, and she was in the same predicament, same thing. But we went there, and it took us actually 5 days, and we found him and got him recovered after 5 days.
Well, let me ask you this question. I know that you alluded to the name of your boat was Bruce's Legacy, and the name of your foundation is Bruce's Legacy. So we don't have a whole lot of time left here, but could you kind of tell us a little bit about Bruce's Legacy? Bruce, is he your brother?
Bruce is my brother. Yeah.
And Bruce was he was involved in he was with a search and rescue team, is my understanding, correct?
And Keith, before you answer that, we definitely want to hear, but that tapping, man, it is magnified. The mouse or whatever you're hitting, it is magnified through this stuff.
I'm gonna throw that thing across the
I'll make you sit with your hands up like this and talk to us the rest of the time. Or, hey, put a beer in your hand. Put that Bud Light in your hand.
I'll be darned. Yeah, that's amazing. That comes out like that.
It is.
Yeah.
You've got good equipment. We've got good equipment.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's a little bit different.
This is our sonar. So you started Bruce's Legacy, and we alluded to that a little bit. And Bruce was your brother, correct?
Correct.
And he was a rescue diver, is my understanding, right?
Yeah, he was a firefighter, EMT for local fire department here in Black River Falls.
And it's my understanding that he was doing a swiftwater rescue with 2 other divers, and they didn't make it, correct? And you were on the scene when that happened.
Yeah, so I was not on the fire department, never have been. We actually just had a group of volunteers back then, just working drownings. And whenever they needed help, they would call me. And so whenever there was a drowning, they would call me, where they would get paged out. But this was actually a recovery operation that they were on. It was a father and 3 daughters on a canoe trip in our local county. We had 7 inches of rain that week. They just decided to go canoeing on this somewhat of a creek, and the waters were flooded back into the woods. They ran into troubles, and the 3 daughters got to watch their father drown in this this kind of overhead dam area.
Horrible.
So the local fire department gets called out on a Saturday. they get there and they see that this is not a diveable operation. The water was way too swift. And the waterheads, were starting to recede down to the rain was earlier in the week. But it was way too dangerous. So they did whatever they could that day. This is back in 1995, August of 1995. What happened was on Sunday, a bunch of local fire department guys wanting to help this family started, the search in the wood line. The woods, the water had been receding out of the woods now. I'm thinking maybe, so they just did what they could. A bunch of them were pulling drag bars across in this area, trying to see if they could snag them. Others were searching the wood lines. So on Sunday with no luck. On Monday, they come back with a plan, and that plan turned to shit. They had no training in switchwater recoveries of any kind. And that plan didn't even include diving. They were just had wetsuits and PFDs on. 3 of them were to walk up, started way downstream, walking up, holding onto a rope by a couple of gorillas on the shoreline, walking up with a rope. And they kept working and feeling with their feet, clearing logs and down trees with their feet until the point that they got up close to this overhead dam, too close, where it got deep real fast, and now they're floating. They've got no, they swept them off their feet, sucked them right into the overhead dam area, and they let go of the rope. Instead of, they knew they didn't want to be fastened into the rope, but they were all holding on, fighting for their lives. One guy got out right away, left the other 2 struggling and getting pulled under to the point where they're both go unconscious, coming to the surface once in a while from the hydraulic. The rest of the firefighters were out in the woods searching, and they get called, they hear all the commotion on radios, and they come out of the woods. They do everything they can, and they were able to pull them both back in with the poles. They reached them with the poles and pulled them to shore. The one, neither one of them were breathing. The one they did get started, resuscitated him right on the shoreline, put him into an ambulance, took him to the local hospital. The other one they took to on med flight to trauma center an hour away, and that was my brother. We as a family had to decide to he was brain dead, and we decided to pull him off life support the following day.
Which, as a nurse, I've seen that too many times, sir. I'm sorry I had to go through that. That's the most impossible decision that a family ever has to make. So you started Bruce's Legacy as kind of an homage and a dedication to your brother, correct?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Yep.
And I assume that you do a lot of this work that you do from folks from donations to Bruce's Legacy, correct?
Correct. Yep. That's how we survive. We don't charge anything for our services. If they can afford it, we ask them to cover our expenses, and if they can afford it, spread the word, and we survive off donations.
Well, before we close this out, Keith, plug your charity there, your nonprofit, and that way, if any of our listeners, have a situation where they do want to get a hold of you, or if they're just someone that's out there listening that wants to donate to what you're doing, because it is incredible. Happily let you tell everybody what that is. And one last thing before we do let you go, in the years you've been doing this, how many bodies have you guys recovered?
So since I started Bruce's Legacy in 2013, we just recovered 35th drowning victim.
Dang.
35 with Bruce's
Cheers
Legacy.
to that. Oh,
cheers
awesome
to you,
work.
buddy.
Cheers
Absolutely.
to you, sir.
That's 35 families that have closure.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Which
and,
they need.
And most of theirs are cases that we come in after everybody's tried all their, they can locally. And so it's an amazing feeling. I tell people it's the most rewarding thing to be able to do, is to give a loving family member back to them after nobody else could.
No, that's incredible. So Keith, what's the name of the name of your company there, buddy?
So it's our nonprofit organization is called Bruce's Legacy. We're nonprofit 501c. We have a website, bruceslegacy.com. We have some nice blogs on there of some past searchers. People tell me they really enjoy reading them. We also have a Facebook page that had a tremendous amount of stuff on there. Bruce's Legacy on the Facebook page. So,
Well, sir, we definitely appreciate everything you do. This is one heck of a cocktail.
Absolutely.
We can't even imagine what goes through your brain, how you came up with a way to build something like Miss Lisa and go down 1,500 plus feet and bring somebody's son up to them and give them back to that mother. I mean, you're amazing, sir.
Absolutely. You know, when Howard came home from working out there in Tahoe, he brought this up. He spoke about you, was like, man, we got to have this guy on the show. And well done, Howard, because this one is an amazing story. So you are fantastic.
I really
Keith.
appreciate it. Appreciate
Keith.
it, guys. And getting the word out there of what it takes us to keep us moving forward, to continue to help these families, no doubt.
We most definitely will. Rest assured, we will do that.
All right. Good day, sir.
Thank you, buddy.
Hey,
Thank
Keith.
you much.